Grand Portage Resources' Herbert Gold Project in southeast Alaska highlights increased gold resource, indicated and inferred, of 860,000 ounces, in excess of 10 grams per ton gold. Expansion drilling is planned on the Herbert Gold property for the summer of 2019. Grand Portage Resources trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman. He's the Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association in BC. His website, icba.ca. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Jordan, who trains most of the construction apprentices and trades-related people in British Columbia?
Oh, I'm thrilled you asked, Jim. So a lot of the mythology around the building trades unions is that they claim they do all the training and that they are the ones who are training all of the different apprentices and all the different trades, but we filed a Freedom of Information request with the Industry Training Authority. That's the government agency that certifies all of these apprentices. And it turns out, by a margin of 4-1, it's open shop companies like the ones represented by the ICBA who are doing the are sponsoring the apprentices. In fact, 23,000 of the 28,000 trades apprentices in BC are actually with open shop companies, not with the unions. So it's another it debunks another myth that somehow it's the unions who are doing all the training, and that companies, open shop companies, are just free riding on the work of these unions.
Now, if that's the case, why have all these government projects? Because it seems like there's some kind of assumption, unless they're trained by a union, they're not any good.
No, and the funny thing is, everyone goes through the exact same process, the same accreditation with the Industry Training Authority. Listen, the reason why open shop companies are so popular, especially with younger workers, is pretty simple. Younger workers realize that talent and ability get recognized by open shop companies, not seniority. So if you're an apprentice trained by the union, you get the jobs that the older workers, the people who've been there longer, don't want. Seniority is the first most important differentiating factor. It determines your pay grade. It determines what projects you work on. The newbies get lower pay. They get the worst projects, or they don't get called at all because the old guys have first crack at it. The open shop is totally different. It's all about merit. So if you come in and you're a gifted welder, for example, you're super talented, companies will pay up far more than the union structure will allow to keep you. And they'll make sure that you're on the best projects, and they will make sure you get the benefits and the holidays you need, because you are so valuable to that company. So it's no wonder the union share has shrunk, even though unions can actually demand training funds from their workers and from the companies that they unionize. They've shrunk because for a millennial looking to get into the industry, of course they'd rather have the flexibility. Of course they'd rather be recognized for their talent and expertise, not for their experience or their seniority.
Now, what does this mean to the taxpayer looking at a number of major projects in BC, a replacement tunnel or twinning the Massey Tunnel, the Pattullo Bridge? These are going to be multi-billion-dollar projects. What does that do to the cost to the taxpayer? Yeah,
so the NDP, who have taken about $3 million worth of donations from various unions over the past 15 years, and are deeply concerned about the future of the union movement, as that is a key driver within their political organization. They're desperate to try to do something to turn the tide and bring unions back to the prominence they had in the 1970s. So they are actually swimming against market forces. To do that, what they've done is hand out a sweetheart deal, essentially a monopoly to these unions on several large public sector projects. The Pattullo Bridge, the new Pattullo Bridge, the Highway 120 east of Kamloops all the way to the Alberta border, and the Broadway subway line. The problem is they are they're artificially driving up the cost of labor on these projects because they're reducing the number of bidders and they're bringing in whole new levels of bureaucracy. We saw this in the Island Highway in the 1990s. The last time the NDP were in charge, that project ran 35 or 40% over budget, and it was simply because of this outdated, flawed labor model. So to give you kind of the handicapper's guide here is, if you're a company and you are successful in bidding on work on the Patello Bridge, you will have to lay off all your workers. They will then have to apply and work and join a Crown corporation and become employees of that Crown corporation, and then a union hiring hall. They'll be forced to pay union dues, join a union that they never voted to join. That union hiring hall will then assign workers back to you. So you may get 4 or 5 of your workers back. You may not. You may get all their union guys back. Either way, not a great model. It adds a whole other level of bureaucracy. It actually erodes safety because you have groups of construction workers who aren't used to working with one another now doing these projects, and it drives up the cost. So we had the first example. There's a small 2-lane, 2-kilometer expansion of Highway 1 east of Revelstoke. That project came in, the bids came in over budget. Turns out it's about 35% over budget already, and it's going to climb upward. We don't even have shovels in the ground there yet. So it's all because of that labor model and the fact that instead of having 8 or 10 companies bid on this contract, you had only 4 because none of the rest of them wanted to deal with the BC government's crazy rules around mandatory unionization. So lots of problems there. Heaven forbid we run 30% over budget or a third over budget on the Patello Bridge. At a $1.2 billion project, you're talking about, a $400 million overrun. That would be very, very worrisome for taxpayers.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. I'm speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, the sky-high price of gasoline in the lower mainland, and I'm sure the rest of BC is not all that cheap either. They have ordered an inquiry into high gasoline prices, but is this a hamstrung inquiry?
Oh yeah, it's a fake inquiry, a faux inquiry. I don't know. I should come up with a pithy social media friendly name for it. So what John Horgan has said is, look at this price gouging. Only look at it from the industry point of view. Don't look at anything to do with the government. The problem with that is you have 55 cents per liter of taxes on a liter of gas right now. Some of it federal, but most of it provincial and TransLink. And then you have what's called provincial red tape. So the province of British Columbia requires a certain clean energy mix in its gasoline. We get refined product from Cherry Point, and then we have to add to it a certain amount of ethanol and a special blend. That has been estimated to cost up to 14 cents more per liter simply because of provincial regulations. We could probably bring that down to half that if we were smart and just mirrored what California or Washington State did, because you wouldn't have to have the special batch made for BC. You could actually share the same fuel efficiency as those or greenhouse gas efficiency as those two states do, and save money there. And it also doesn't look at what does it mean when a provincial government wants to use every tool in the toolkit against a pipeline, which would bring more refined fuel product into the market. So it's a finger-pointing exercise. John Horgan is fervently hoping that by the time this comes back in August, gas prices will have fallen, and maybe, he gets lucky and the BC Utilities Commission finds some sort of price gouging by the companies. But again, the last thing he wants to do is look in the mirror, even though that's probably where he should be starting.
Well, an inquiry into gasoline that can't look at taxes or pipeline capacity, as Chris Sims said from the Taxpayers Federation, that's like telling a homicide detective you can't go in the basement where the bad smell is coming from.
That's exactly it. I've done some math on this for a piece I wrote for the Orca.ca, and I looked at a liter of gas in Blaine, Washington, and the same liter of gas in Surrey, BC. And if you take all the taxes out of it, that liter of gas is only more expensive in Canada by about 3 cents a liter. So, it's less than a toonie a tank, that difference, if you take all the taxes out of it. You layer all the taxes on top, and all of a sudden that liter of gas now is about $20 a tank more expensive. So, it's a big difference. And again, it's the difference of the two tax regimes, but, that's the last thing John Horgan wants to talk about, is the fact that, he has a carbon tax specifically designed to try to make gasoline more expensive in order to make people change their behavior. The problem is, these taxes are especially punitive for working people who have to use vehicles, and for the poor, because, it's not a progressive tax by any means. So, John Horgan, for a guy who talks so much in the election campaign about affordability, he's sure acting contrary to that since he's taken over the reins of power.
Is there any sign that the BC government regulations on housing are really the cause for housing prices to come down, or is the real effect is that a homeowner now has less equity in that home to perhaps use it to go for a vacation or just invest in their retirement?
Yeah, I think there is definitely less equity for people to use for other things. So you're starting to see retail sales slow. You'll see vacation down this, tourism down from British Columbians this year. I think you'll see that take a hit. Look, the market was going to cool off anyways. It wasn't going to continue booming like that forever. Then you add into it the, some of the work around foreign buyers, the mortgage stress test. All these different factors were bringing it down. And, now we have these, huge layers of more tax and more bureaucracy on top of all that. So, yeah, look, I just don't understand a provincial government that's so excited to be bragging, that they're out there bragging that they're the ones who are, cratering people's net worth. But that's the NDP way, right? They don't believe anyone should be. I think they believe that if you're wealthy, you must have done something wrong to get it. They don't want to reward success; they want to punish it.
What about taxing vacation property, cabins, and so on that are uninsulated? You couldn't rent them out because people couldn't live in them in the colder months of the year. So why are they going after that?
Yeah, well, that's an issue that popped up and now it's kind of quieted down. It'll come back again, I'm sure. It's this NDP government's way. They don't believe people should own a second house. They think that's something that should be punished, like as if it was cigarettes or something else. Something bad for the world. Unfortunately, a lot of these people who own these things, made sacrifices to get them or inherited it, and now they're being punished for it. So that's the NDP way, and if you don't like it, well, you got one choice, and that's to vote the bums out.
Well, I also remember when the carbon tax went up earlier this year, John Horgan saying it's only a penny or two more a liter. We can all afford that. But now BC Ferries has a fuel surcharge again, something we haven't seen for decades or a decade. And I'm hearing that delivery companies now are charging more and adding fuel surcharges. Is that going to become a way of life in BC? Fuel surcharges, all because of a tax.
Yeah. It's just a penny, though, Jim. What's the problem here? Come on. John Horgan and Carol James ran a whole campaign against the carbon tax back in 2009. Axe the tax. They've since flip-flopped and become they've actually made the carbon tax even worse by removing any semblance of revenue neutrality and continuing to hike it. I'm really curious what happens this fall. If Andrew Scheer and the Conservative government win and they kill the Trudeau carbon taxation policy, again, BC will stand alone in this province as the only ones with a carbon tax. And I do think that's the moment where, Andrew Wilkinson and the BC Liberals should step forward and say, listen, we brought in the carbon tax because we wanted to be a climate leader, but being a leader means someone's following you, no one on earth is following us when it comes to carbon taxation. Therefore, we're going to suspend this carbon tax until such time as, it's imposed by our nearest competitors, Alberta and Washington State. That would give the BC Liberals kind of the way out of that. It would be a huge differentiator between them and the Green NDP coalition. And you can see what happens next. But I think a lot of people are waiting to see what happens this fall and if Andrew Scheer actually can defeat Justin Trudeau and the national carbon tax altogether.
Andrew Scheer proposing, if he was Prime Minister, that he would ensure that there was an energy corridor across Canada so that Canadians from coast to coast could use Canadian energy instead of importing it. Is that a good plan?
Yeah, at least he has an idea for energy. I mean, I'll give him that. The problem we have right now is no one really wants to do anything to further the energy industry in this country, and even though it's such a huge economic driver. So, yeah, good on him. Are there challenges? Yeah, there's challenges on any energy and renewable resource project, resource development project. But at least he's out there trying to think of solutions and finding a way to make it happen. We need to continue to move energy, oil and gas across this country. We should be an energy independent country. Instead, we're relying on the United States to help us. And back east, you're relying on places like Venezuela to send oil. Not smart. We've got to be better than this.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, the BC Court of Appeal has unanimously ruled 5 judges to none that BC cannot regulate what is put into a pipeline that's federal jurisdiction. BC says it's going to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada, but just recalling from my days as a court reporter, usually if you have a unanimous ruling from a court of appeal, the Supreme Court of Canada doesn't usually look at something, whereas BC special because it's a province asking for a legal ruling.
That's a good question. Well, first of all, the Court of Appeal ruling was fantastic. It's a huge victory for Canada as a whole. No province should be able to gut another province's economic future. We're all in this together, and what raises votes in, what helps Alberta certainly helps British Columbia and the rest. It is interesting that in the Supreme Court of Canada Act that there is a special loophole for provinces that they can expedite their cases and get a hearing, whether they deserve to or not. I guess, I'm not sure why provinces have that right and not other people, other groups, but that is the law of the land, and perhaps when it was formulated decades ago, there was a reason for it.
A Quebec judge has ruled SNC-Lavalin must go to court to face fraud charges. Is that a good move, and is that what Canadians should expect? Yeah, well, now the question is, will Trudeau deliver on that, much discussed deferred prosecution agreement? The moment of truth is here. This is why Jody Wilson-Raybould resigned, because she felt she was being pressured over this, over giving one of these to SNC-Lavalin. And boy, is there going to be a lot of scrutiny. I think Trudeau's, well, we know from Jody Wilson-Raybould, Trudeau would like to have prosecution deferred on this. We also know from Jody Wilson-Raybould that it should not be the Prime Minister's decision. It should be the Attorney General and the Independent Prosecution Service. I'm really keen, really interested to see what happens here. Look, if they've done something wrong, they should be prosecuted. There's no doubt about it. Why should they get off when everyone else in the world would have to deal with that? It's an important thing to go forward with, but at the same time, I'm a political guy. I understand the politics behind it, and boy, is this ever going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Sure, accused of supplying prostitutes to Gaddafi's son and so on. It's
when you put it like that, Jim, come on.
Of course, it's just the cost of business, isn't it?
Yeah.
A company that may be supporting sex slavery. Sure.
Yeah.
Why should that have to go to court?
I know, it's so disgusting. It's so crazy, right? Like, how are we in this world where we're talking about this stuff like this? But here we are, and it's unreal. It is unreal that this is the way this is all unfolded. And you can't believe that. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Yeah, and the other thing is, like, how did you expense that? I mean, I take the SkyTrain downtown, I expense it, and then, I'm nervous about the boss signing off on it and explaining it to him and all that stuff. These guys are, expensing sex workers. It's unreal. It's like a totally different kind of world than the one that all of us normal people have ever been in.
Of course, I see the Parliament Hill reporter saying this story plays out differently in Quebec. Well, Quebec is a province, as we know, awash in corruption. We saw the inquiry into it and how everything from snow shoveling to sewers in Montreal was all connected to the mob. How connected is SNC-Lavalin to the mob then? Or the Liberal Party?
I am not sure, but I do know SNC-Lavalin has, deep roots across the country. They've done many, many projects here in BC. Listen, this is why this stuff needs to be prosecuted and checked out. You can't allow companies like this to just walk away and not be wrapped for what they did. So we will, I guess, wait and see. Will the Liberals actually allow to be prosecuted? That is the, I guess, billion-dollar question when it comes to SNC.
Sure. Now, I haven't heard Andrew Scheer say he would get rid of this deferred prosecution law.
No, I haven't heard that. There might be instances where it could be useful. I believe it exists in other countries as well.
Where a lot of people believe that...
It could be a thing, though, that he's also saving for, when he releases the platform, because what better time to bring up SNC and Jody Wilson-Raybould and political interference than during an election campaign?
And the decision of Jody and Jane Philpott to run as independents instead, they were offered membership in several other parties, especially the Greens, and they decided to go independent. Does that say something about the state of the Canadian political situation where you have two people who don't really feel safe in the party system?
I think it speaks to those two maybe wanting to climb back into the Liberals after the next election if Justin Trudeau is defeated. The Greens are pretty rinky-dink. They have a bunch of because they're so small, they attract a number of kind of crazy people. You have the new MP who, it seems to be a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. They've had problems with anti-Semitism in that party in the past. I don't blame them for not wanting to get into bed with the BC or with the Green Party of Canada. I do have a hunch though that they're hoping to get reelected, that Trudeau leaves the party, and that they can come back into the Liberals then.
Yes, and we have the leader of the NDP now saying he's against fossil fuels, whether it's crude or LNG. Isn't LNG going to be one of the biggest investments ever in Canadian history right here in BC?
It will be the largest investment in Canadian history. I wonder what John Horgan thinks of Jagmeet Singh coming out and saying dumb stuff like that. Remember, the NDP are unique among political parties. A member of the BC NDP is a member of the federal NDP, is a member of the Alberta NDP. There's no differentiation between membership lists. If you're a member of the NDP, you're a member of all the NDP, including if there's a civic NDP. So, this is John Horgan's party leader, federal party leader, saying, no, John Horgan's wrong on LNG. Another boneheaded move by Jagmeet Singh in a, long career, year-long career here of making dumb comments like this.
Jordan, anything else you wanted to bring up today?
One last thing. The legislative session in Victoria is wrapping up, and the BC Liberals and Green Party actually got together and fixed some major flaws in the NDP's labor code. Essentially, the NDP were trying to, as a sop to their building trades unions friends, make construction different from other industries when it came to union rating, basically allowing annual union rates to occur. So, if you're a construction company organized by CLAC, for example, you could face a union rate from another union every single year. That was deemed to be wrong-headed, unfair by the BC Greens and BC Liberals. They amended that piece out of the legislation, and then the Act passed. So good on them for burying the hatchet between those two parties and doing what's right for workers and for construction workers in particular.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Their website, icba.ca. If you have any questions for Jordan or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.